Carl and Liam here from Games, Brains, and Head-Banging Life. gbhblofficial for short, and it's We're Afraid of the Dark. We are up to episode 10 into double figures of season 1, The Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun, written by Nick Webb, directed by DJ McHale. This is Eric's first story, and I hope he never tells one again.
Yeah.
Benjamin Plenner plays Jake Joyson and the boy. John Dunhill plays Aaron, Seamus Doyle, and of course Gort. David Steinberg as Sean O'Shannay. Jennifer Seguin as Lucy, and Frayne McCarthy as Carl/the Goblin. Everyone's playing multiple roles here, but not in different ways. It'll make sense when I talk it through, folks. Basically, this is a play being performed on stage for we're watching in that aspect more than anything else. This is one of the most nostalgic episodes we've watched to this point. I couldn't believe when this first started off, it was like I got transported back to being my childhood. Really? So much of this jumped out. I couldn't believe it. Every time something else happened, I was like, oh my God, I remember this. I remember this.
I mean, you've started off by criticizing it, but if it's that memorable, can it be bad?
My criticism comes from the fact that there is nothing scary about this. It's got some extremely cheesy acting.
Oh yeah,
and stuff that I feel is a little outdated in places.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, a couple of little facts about this. Benjamin Plenner is the brother of Noah Plenner, who appeared in the episodes The Tale of the Twisted Claw as Dougie Freeman, and later as The Tale of the Magician's Assistant as Todd Marker. So family connections.
Yeah, I was wondering why they looked so familiar, actually. So there you go.
There's another reason why he's so familiar. He was also in 2 Goosebump episodes. Welcome to Camp Nightmare as Roger, and The Haunted House Game as Jonathan.
Oh yes, there you go. That's
2 major roles. Okay, we begin at the Midnight Society with a different vibe, a somber feel, as Gary explains that Frank is going to pass on his turn for Eric to tell a story. And Eric explains that his grandfather, who was Irish, has died. And he tells him that his grandfather was a teller of Irish stories and legends. Eric removes a green Irish leprechaun hat and explains that before his grandfather passed on, he gave it to Eric and told him to guard it with his life because it's blessed with the power of pixies. Now, my normal mocking self is, shut up, Eric, you're an idiot. But actually, the somber tone and how he's talking, I thought was strong. I kind of got the sense of loss. And I was like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, it does give you that sort of different vibe immediately. Like you kind of, I think it does kind of set up like you're not going to get a traditional horror story in a way. It's going to have a different feel. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think it's similar to the glasses one, the specs one. It's nice to remind us and show us that life is going on around the Midnight Society.
Yeah, that's true.
He's bombarded with a ton of questions about pixies and leprechauns, and apparently his granddad got the hat in a trade with a leprechaun. If a person offers a trade, they can't refuse it no matter what they'll be getting in return. All that one needs to say to it is, mine be yours and yours be mine. Get used to hearing that fucking phrase. And Eric is going to tell one of his granddad's stories and submits for the approval of the Midnight Society, The Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun. So approaching this, I had a big issue, immediately. I'm like, okay, my reference for Leprechaun horror is one franchise and one franchise alone. And I've seen them all. And I've watched them all, including the remakes and reimaginings. So I'm like, okay, that's my bar setter. And the Leprechaun franchise, specifically the Warwick Davis one, is a blend of trash leading up to things that are okay. There's nothing great in that series.
So the bar's quite low, really, isn't it? So
Indeed. At night, we begin in a forest, and a boy is confronted by some sort of goblin, and it looks like a fucking set. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? What happened to the production? What went wrong? Thankfully, it's just me being an idiot. You thought
it was like, actually, this is the episode.
Yeah,
so.
I was like, oh yeah, genuinely like, did they run out of money?
That'd be bad.
The boy screams as the goblin threatens to eat his liver. However, a middle-aged Irish leprechaun named Seamus Doyle appears sitting on a branch in a nearby tree with, you know, caricature accents and music playing along as well. And this was when it first happened. Him appearing, it was like a lightning bolt on my brain. I was like, whoa, what happened? I remember this.
It is memorable. I think just because it does have like a sort of kooky vibe to it. I think often that does kind of make things memorable, I find.
Oh, yes, it is heavily Irish, but it is very, very silly caricature, other like version of Irish fables and legends, you know.
Yeah, maybe as a fellow Irishman, you would have so deeply offended by some of the cliche stereotype type stuff in it that it stuck with you.
Yeah, the cliche stuff does bug me, particularly as I think there's more wonderful, fantastical stuff from Irish history and folklore to use than just leprechauns. But I remember, and I always have to remind myself, it ain't for me. It's for a certain audience, and this is going to work perfectly fine.
Yes.
Seamus jumps down to protect the boy, getting into a brief sword fight with the goblin, telling the boy to get out of the way. But as the boy tries to run off, he falls over in front of them, looks up and says sorry, and everyone starts to laugh, revealing that it's a show, a play, and he just messed up the scene. And I was like, I was completely oblivious to that.
Yeah, I used to kind of like these episodes where they kind of like portray, this sort of idea, like plays and stuff like that, where it's kind of like a production type of thing. Sometimes, and that's like a nice idea, and it can play out quite well.
Oh, Goosebumps had one. The Phantom one, wasn't it? The Phantom one, like season 1. Yeah, that was pretty well done as well.
Yeah.
The role of the boy in the play is being played by Jake, who always dreamed of becoming an actor, and he finally got his chance to try when he landed a part in the play called Will-O-the-Wisp. And that, I ground my teeth at that. I was like, oh, you cheeky fuckers. The middle-aged Irishman playing Seamus Doyle is revealed to be an old Irishman named Erin, and he requests Lucy, a stagehand, to bring him a cup of his own special herbal tea. Jake is curious and intrigued by the tea, which Lucy tells him it supposedly helps Erin be creative, and it always seems to work in the nick of time. And so, well, there you go. There you go. You just dropped all of that shit in there. That's clearly what we're going to be using later on for something.
Yep.
Jake, feeling a little discouraged about his talents and abilities, wonders if the tea can help him. Even though Lucy tells him it's fine, she gives him the recipe for the ingredients, but doubts that he can find them. And Erin won't share the drink, apparently. So we're getting all this stuff around tea. Truth be told, I was like, it's just fucking whiskey. It's just going to be whiskey, isn't it? That's all it is. He's getting lathered up.
Wow, what a twist that would be.
Erin calls Jake to the stage and suggests they rehearse another scene. Jake agrees, and Erin starts to talk about the age of the theatre, the magic of the stage, and the importance of letting yourself be transported mentally to another place. Fantastic scene. I buy into that. I'm a strong believer that as much as I can watch, and even this is a good example, I watch this and I'm doing notes. But if you're doing magic in front of me, I will watch. I will be captivated. I will stop what I'm doing and go, right, let me watch this. And then I'll go back and redo the notes afterwards because you've got my attention. So I buy into that. The amount of times I've watched a horror movie or a movie that's in the first 10 or 15 minutes isn't grabbing me, but something happens and suddenly I'm like, all right. And then you're in that world. It's why we look at classic movies and reference them still to this day, because they left that impression, because we believed that for years. I believed, is it Santa Carla from Lost Boys was a real place.
Yeah.
So yeah, big fan of that scene.
Yep, for sure.
But then we kind of just cut, and Jake arrives at a huge greenhouse and runs into the gardener, Sean O'Shanney. Sean is a dwarf, and Jake basically can't hide his shock. Like, it's offensively how he reacts to it. Like, he's never in his life seen a dwarf.
Yeah.
Sean says that Jake is the glamour and is very friendly, at least until Jake gives him the list of ingredients, which causes Sean to lose his shit and just start shouting at Jake, sending him away angrily. So, but yeah, I did laugh at that, the way because he's really friendly. So it is quite a nice turn.
Yeah.
In a dark room somewhere, someone laughs evilly and speaks a chant. Take his soul and grind it whole and eat it with a fish. The boy be mine for all of time. This is what I wish. I did like a lot of the rhymes in this, so I wrote a lot of them down.
Yeah, it's quite cleverly done.
We also see a picture of Jake on the wall with the name of the play, Will-o'-the-Wisp, under it. On stage, Jake and Erin are rehearsing another scene for the play, and the scene is about the boy begging for Seamus to turn him into a leprechaun to protect himself so the goblin would no longer be able to hurt him. Seamus tells him that if you do this, you'll never be a boy again. The boy agrees, and Seamus has him dance and repeat an incantation. And with each part done, Seamus drinks from a flask before passing it for Jake to drink too. So that's kind of how this goes. But when he drinks it, he starts to speak the incantation, but his voice begins to get very deep, so it kind of scares him and freaks him out. Clearly something odd happened. Did you have any kind of inkling that you knew what was going on at this stage? Because I certainly didn't.
Well, as I've mentioned before, I have seen some of these episodes fairly recently, so the twists are not exactly twists to me, unfortunately. So I did have an idea where I was going for that reason. But like seeing it from the perspective of somebody that maybe have never seen it. I don't think you would really, would you?
At best, I think you'd say is that you'd think Seamus was a villain, but motivations and reasons and why, none of that is there, I think.
I think so.
So obviously Jake freaks out. Erin tries to assure him nothing is wrong and it's just in his head, and he suggests repeating what Sean said, that Jake has the glamour and that it is a gift and he should try and use it. The glamour thing, it's used several times for this episode, but has absolutely no fucking bearing on the ending and where the story goes. And it was annoying me because they kept saying it, right? And all I kept hearing was groundskeeper Woody talking about the shinning. That's all I kept hearing. You got the shinning.
Yeah, there's quite a few terms, like you said, they repeat in the episode. They're just trying to like draw into it, get into your head, and it does stick with you. So I'll give it that. Yeah.
Jake goes back to Sean's greenhouse, and Sean is still not happy to see him, though. Jake desperately wants to know about T. Herbs and tells Sean through his door of his concerns about what happened to him on stage. And this is enough for Sean to let him in and listen to his story. Inside, Sean relaxes and realizes that Jake doesn't really know about the herbs. So as Jake talks, Sean's kind of like, yeah, you actually don't know what you brought me. So, you know, basically, you're not a bad dude. I like that. That's a clever way to get to that. He then asks about the play. Erin and Moore telling Jake that he got the herbs by trading with a Spriggan. Yours be mine and mine be yours, with Jake noting it's a line from the play. And Sean agrees, because opening night is coming up, to come along and see the play. Basically, I like the character of Sean and I like the actor. He's playing his cards here really close to his chest. His friends, he almost doesn't want to seem to give the game away and suggest that he might know something odd is going on. He's more like, yeah, I'll come see. Clearly designed, I'm going to come see who's involved and what's going on here.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the back and forth between the two characters, actually, and I think they have like a good rapport going on and stuff like that. Yeah, it's well done.
They do actually have good chemistry. It's final rehearsals, and Sean is backstage watching Jake and Erin. Sean is shocked when he sees Erin. Seemingly, he knows him. So he sets about disrupting this transformation scene that they're rehearsing, making a prop tree fall, and that obviously interrupts rehearsal. When Jake goes backstage, Sean explains that he did it, but he did it to save his life. Jake is angry, but Sean explains the real danger is that he's transforming, and has Jake look in a mirror to discover that he now has grown pointy ears. And obviously Jake screams in a horrifying shock. Great little prosthetics here. I only noticed when he made Jake look in a mirror. Like that's how good it is, how blended in it well, because he comes backstage and he's talking to Sean. At no point did I notice the ears.
Yeah, it's clever.
Back at the campsite, I had the most nostalgic moment ever. And I think, and I vaguely remember as a kid, I think we used to say this and repeat this line over and again in the same stupid accent that Eric does. This is where the plot thickens. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, that took me back.
Yeah, I do think you're right on that one. That's definitely one that I recall saying back in the day. I'm not sure why. Like you said, I think just he says it in such a funny way and like in a cheesy way and with the accent and stuff. Just as a kid, you find that funny, I guess, and it's amusing to hear it back now, being older and stuff like that, isn't it?
It is. And what I thought was even funnier is that this story is entirely based around Ireland, Irishness. He does it in an English accent. He puts a strong English accent on.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true.
Jake is looking at himself in the mirror as Sean tells him that the incantation is turning him into a changeling. Jake can't believe that Aaron would do something so horrible to him, but Sean claims Aaron would if Aaron is who he thinks he is. So we're still not quite there. We're kind of getting there. Sean wants to know where Aaron sleeps or spends his time. And apparently he spends his time in a dressing room in a lower basement area and doesn't want to be disturbed. So they sneak down there to spy on him. Sean uses his pipe to set off a smoke alarm and he hides as Aaron runs out angrily. And then they sneak into his dressing room and inside find an altar surrounding basically an altar to Jake and the play. And it's like, Aaron, man, listen, it's your dressing room, but doesn't mean someone's not popping their head in there. Don't leave that shit out. Don't leave your weird stuff out for people to see.
Indeed.
Sean looks through Aaron's collections of spices and herbs and finds rowan root. And I was like, oh my God, seriously, 2 episodes in a row where they're being really specific about what things need to be done? I thought that was fucking weird. Could you just say a root?
Yeah, I think they need to be quite specific.
They're too late, though, as Aaron comes back. They're able to hide under the bed as we see Aaron relax, remove his ears, revealing like pointed, like bat-like gross ears. And then under the bed, the pair also see his pointy and hairy feet. And from our perspective, when he sits in the bed, we see he has a really hairy mane on his back. I really like the look of him. I was like, okay. Yeah. I didn't know what he was. I was like, what is he in like relation to like these Irish legends? Because he's clearly not a leprechaun and all that. Didn't expect them to go with what they do.
Yeah, I think it looks good and it's quite nasty looking in a way, you know.
It is a bit gross looking. The actors certainly game. And Jake and Sean are now able to escape. And Sean reveals to Jake that Erin is a banshee. I was like, whoa. What? Why? I realize the rules of banshees are very, very loose and so on. But if we're sticking to such Irish traditional stuff, this is not, in my view, a traditional Irish banshee.
Yeah. You think it would have been just simpler to go down the line of he is some kind of evil leprechaun or something, you know? That would have been like the easiest to take.
Yeah, and the simple thing is, well, and because then you would obviously have Jake be like, well, he's too big for a leprechaun. And she'll be like, not all leprechauns have to be small. It's not like a hard and fast rule. Or, considering there's a goblin in the play, and considering how he looks, he's a goblin.
Goblin, yeah.
Anyway, Sean explains that banshees feed on human souls, and every 7 years they need to have another one. Sure, why not? If Jake continues to play, he'll be Aaron's next victim. And Sean suggests they beat him at his own game. And we now cut to opening night, and it's a packed house. And we come into the play at the point where the goblin threatens the boy. He runs off in fear, and the curtain closes, finishing that act. So we've reached that point. During the set change, Jake goes to the costume room to find Sean, and Sean tells him there are 3 rules to beating a banshee. And I was like, wait a fucking moment. You waited from the previous scene to all the way to the play's ongoing to now tell him the rules.
I know, what's he waiting for, man? Time's of the essence, right?
What I want to know is when he said we'll beat him at his own game, did he directly go, right, cool, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be there about halfway through the show.
Yeah. What are we talking about? You're gonna make me do half the show. You're gonna make me do half the show with this like creepy monster that I just like saw, and yeah.
I think it speaks volumes about Jake's skills as an actor that he was able to do that much of the show, knowing that Aaron is going to try and take his soul.
Exactly, it does.
So the rules. Rule 1, be fearless. That's not a rule. You can't make that a fucking rule. Being fearless is a state of feeling and mind.
He's done pretty well so far. I mean, like you said, he's just done an entire half of his show with the guy.
But to be fair, Sean follows that out by basically forcing him to be fearless by making him do one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life. He hands Jake a tube with 2 spiders in it, and we get a lovely close-up scene of those spiders in that tube, and he has to eat and swallow those spiders. And I was like, well, that's me done.
No, not the spider.
Leprechaun life, changeling, here I come.
Yeah, it's true. If that's what I have to do, I think I just have to accept it.
Yep. Next, it's the black glamour pouch, and Sean adds some special stones to it. He then sprinkles dust and casts a spell in it saying, ruined tree, red thread, puts to witches to their speed. Okay. All right. The second rule is to give Aaron a taste of his own medicine and not to take it himself anymore. So basically, don't drink it, but give Aaron a taste. I was going, how is this a rule? Like, this is not a rule. This is an instruction. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And the third rule is to use Aaron's spell against him and not take his eyes off him. Basically, apparently spellbind him by keeping his eyes on him. So, right, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. We're almost at the end. It's the final act now, incantation time. This time, when Aaron drinks the potion, he does seem to notice it tastes a bit funny. And things go off the rails when Jake, after he throws the pouch to Jake, for Jake to drink, Jake does his version of the incantation, but doesn't drink and throws it right back. He does it really cockily as well. I was like, ooh, you're getting ballsy. But basically, Aaron, realizing that something, he whispers, he's like, oh, who have you been talking to, boy? And then he throws the pouch into the audience, which distracts Jake, who looks away, meaning he's now broke eye contact with Aaron and basically fucked it up already. Good job there, Jake. Of course, when he turns around, Aaron has disappeared, but then for some reason he immediately reappears. I hate when they do that. It's like, oh, he's gone. Oh, no, he's back. But he's now fully transformed into a banshee. Jake begs for help to the audience, saying, look, help me. It's really happening. But they all think it's part of the show and obviously don't do anything. And obviously the crew watching are really confused. Honestly, I have never in my life, I hate this trope. I fucking hate it. You've been watching a show that is now about 3/4 of the way through. At no point has it broken the fourth wall.
No.
And now it's breaking the fourth wall, and the child on stage is crying out to the audience to help me. You have to be a bit like, this is weird, right? At least not like, oh, what a wonderful show. And the crew just standing there going, flicking through their scripts going, where's this book? It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yeah, like there's no way in actual reality that's how it would go down. And like you said, I'm not a fan of the trope either of everyone just allowing it to play out, continue to go on after that's happened, because that's just ridiculous. Because like they put so much effort into putting this show together. Why would you let the actors suddenly go improv, like full improv on it? It makes no sense.
Yep, absolutely. The only way it ever will work is if it's in a show that was all about audience participation and was breaking the fourth wall throughout anyway.
Of course, if that was what it was, yeah, exactly.
But it's not. Sean now appears in the tree branch and calls Aaron Gort. So he's got his third name. He's now Gort. They've had battles in the past, apparently. Gort tells him that some of his old tricks still work, fires an energy ball at the prop tree. It knocks over in a crash and Sean disappears. And the audience are like, whoa! Gort thinks he's destroyed him and turns back to Jake. And Gort now turns Jake into a frog, much to the amazement of the audience, who again are clapping like seal and just like amazed. But also, like, seriously, I'd be like, imagine we're sitting there, I think we'd look to each other and go, this has gone a bit weird, right? This has gone off the rails as a show, right? What's going on?
I'd be like, probably like, finally getting interesting, man. It's getting good.
Sean now reappears and shows Gort that he has his severed tail. And this gets so fucking confusing. Because what the hell's he got in his hand? Is that a snake? Is that a rope? And then, no, it turns out it's a severed tail from the previous battle, and Sean has kept it ever since. And Gort wants it back, and Sean offers Gort a trade for it. But he doesn't actually say what he's trading for. Only by reading online did I realize he's trading the tail for Jake's soul. Say the words we need to hear.
Yeah, I think your issue is that you're not a like connoisseur of Irish folklore. That's your issue. You're the problem.
Yeah, it's me. I really should have done my reading up beforehand. Sean trades Gort the tail and says, yours be mine and mine be yours. But Gort, having been a complete and utter idiot, now having lost Jake's soul to feed on, basically dies, disappears in a flash. And I was like, the fuck happened here? So because he didn't get the soul, but couldn't he just go get another soul? Was he on a timer? Was it
No,
like, I need a soul in the next 2 minutes?
they didn't establish that as he's on some kind of deadline.
Hmm.
Well, apparently so.
But also, like, how dumb, if he wasn't a deadline, how dumb can you be to be like, yeah, I want to tell. Oh, wait, no, I'm dead.
Yeah. Well, I just we'll go into final thoughts after. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Short Knight casts a spell on a frog saying, absent friend, distant place, return to the human race. And Jake has turned back to normal, and the audience gives them a standing ovation. And Jake and Sean bow to the audience, and the former gives Jake his hat. Eric tells the viewers that Will-O-the-Wisp was never performed again. No shit. And Erin disappeared forever. Now, back to the Midnight Society, Eric takes off his hat, smiles, and proudly tells his grandpas that one was for you. That one was for you, Pop-Up. I can never hear anybody saying Pop-Up without thinking of Arrested Development. It's all I ever think of.
Yeah, that's true.
Then his friends all get up, give him a little clap, and hug him. And I did like that as a final scene to show a little bit of closeness and sympathy for his loss. This is a baffling episode. On one hand, I really like the concept behind it. I like the difference in storytelling, and I like the reason it's being told. I also think you could almost get away, right? You could almost get away with saying it's a bit of a mess of a story because it's being told from memory. But that's me giving it some serious leeway. I think it gets really, really messy in places and doesn't really, what it tries to do is add too many different ideas in from folklore instead of focusing on one simple, this is what he is, this is what he wants to do, and how do we stop him?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think they try to do too much when they should get it a bit more simplified, and there's a lot of things that are convoluted, like just having your whole evil plan play out through this whole play and everything. It just seems like maybe there's a simpler way of doing this.
Right.
You know, I'm no expert, man. I'm no like Banshee, right? So maybe I'm an idiot. Could have maybe made it a bit simpler. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I'd like to know kind of the stories behind this episode because it does feel like it stands out a lot from like every other episode, just because it doesn't have like the traditional horror elements. Like I know the Leprechaun thing has been done in horror and stuff, but it just feels like the whole story with his grandpa, like that whole thing, and like it just there's something else going on here. I wonder what it is, you know.
It's more fantastical than horror. It's more fantasy.
Yeah, and I really like folklore type stories in horror and things like that when done well. And I don't think this is done that badly, and it's definitely memorable. But it's memorable because of its strangeness. Yeah.
I just found it too messy to come away with a really satisfied more than anything else. There are things to say, like there are less things. All I can pull apart is that I think it gets really messy near the end more than anything else. But like all I end up doing is going, right, well, if I pull this scene apart, I'd have done this and I'd done that. But it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Right? So like the whole Erin's whole game, it's all about the incantation. And truth be told, you're going to struggle to get a person on the street to just do that incantation and then drink something you've got. So I get what he has to do. I think he probably could have, basically, there would have been a simpler way. Hey, Jake, particularly after they established that Jake was struggling, come to my dressing room for a private like coaching lesson.
Yeah, like a read through of the lines or whatever.
Yeah, and he'd have probably knocked it out of the park and had him there, basically. But then there's an argument to say, well, then Jake disappearing like that might put Erin in suspicion. Like the thing is, I almost correct myself. I think as far as plot holes go, it's not that messy in that regard. It's just when we get to the play at the end and the mess with Sean and the tail and the rules around the Banshee and what it needs to do with his soul thing, it's just not well put together. But I can forgive it because I think, as you said, I think it's got a different tone. And I think it stands out for that.
I like it for that reason, and I think the acting is pretty strong, and production of the whole play and everything. I think it plays out in a way that you can almost just suspend your disbelief that the audience would not necessarily catch on to what's going on. I think it's part of the show. You can almost just forgive it for that, but it's kind of almost.
Isn't it interesting that the actor, the boy Jake, in this has been involved in some of the more crazier episodes? Because of course, Welcome to Camp Nightmare from Get Goosebumps, when we reviewed that, of course, that twist at the end of that one is one of the most baffling, over the top, absurd things we'd ever seen.
Yeah, that's true. It's a crazy one. yeah, I don't know. I wonder how that happened. Why he signs on for these crazy ones. I mean, they are probably some of the more interesting episodes, to be fair. So
Well, we do have the Tale of the Magician's Assistant involving him to come in the future. So that should be interesting to see how he performs in that.
mhm.
But for now, this is episode 10, The Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun. You got any thoughts? You know what to do? Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website where reviews, news and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at gbhbl. Just search for gbhbl and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.